extent that it is increasing your risk for certain diseases. Okay? So it is a medical term. All right? We use morbid in medicine all the time. I had a morbidity and mortality conference this morning. Had nothing to do with bariatric surgery, but it's a conference where we sit and talk about patients who have problems after surgery. Okay? So morbid is purely a medical term. So morbid obesity just means that a patient has fat in excess that can increase the risk for certain diseases. Okay? And those diseases are what we call comorbidities. All right? So you can have morbid obesity related comorbidities. Right? And those medical problems are things like high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, sleep apnea, and so on. Right? So typically when someone is referred to see us and they're classified as morbidly obese, they're about 100 pounds over their recommended body weight. Right. So we classify body weight based on something called the body mass index. And that's a calculation where we take your height in centimeters, multiply it by itself, and divide it into your weight in kilograms, and we come up with a number. And if that number is above 35, then you're in the severe obesity range, all right? And you're considered eligible for surgery. Less than 35, but above 30, you're considered obese. Between 25 and 29, you're overweight. Between 18.5 and 24.9, you're considered healthy. And under 18.5, you're considered underweight. So as I said, this is just a way of sort of stratifying your weight, okay? But it doesn't tell the whole story about a patient, because you can have a BMI of 35 and, you know, clinically, you know, technically that makes you severely obese, but a lot of football players have this body mass index, and they're just full of muscle and have very little body fat. So it's just a way to categorize your weight, but it doesn't say anything about what your body composition actually is. Okay. So this slide here just shows the rising rates of obesity in adults and children. So this is the curve for children. This is the one for adults. This is looking at data starting in 1999 and going up to 2016. And so what you can see from this line here is that the rates of obesity are going up. All right? There are a lot of different reasons for that. We live in a developed country. We have access to to cars, right? We don't walk very much. Our food is very processed. So that means that a lot of the nutritional benefit has been stripped away from it. And in place of that, a lot of fat, sugar, and salt have been added, all right? And our food tends to be very calorie dense, right? So we're very sedentary. Our food is very calorie dense and very cheap, frankly, compared to a lot of places around the world. And so as our lifestyle has become more comfortable, more sedentary, the rates of obesity have gone up. All right? So it's estimated that 2/3 of all adults currently are considered overweight, and half of that number, or 1/3 of all adults, are considered morbidly obese. Obesity is a problem in children as well. All right? And the reason why this is so concerning, even though the proportion is lower in children, overweight children have a tendency to grow up to become overweight adults or obese adults, okay? And they have a lot of the same medical problems seen in adults at a much younger age, all right? So to treat those medical problems, that means medications, right? And the more people that are on medications, the more money we're spending as a country on healthcare, all right? So currently we spend about 20% of all the income generated in the United States, all the wealth generated in the United States, about 20% of that is spent on healthcare costs, all right? So if children are now having medical problems, that's just increasing the cost of healthcare, right? And obesity is the second leading cause of preventable death in the United States. All right? So it's a big problem. So this is a really busy slide. The best way I can summarize it is to point out that this divides the things that cause obesity into the things that we can't change and the things that we can change, right? So the things that we can't change that lead to obesity are your age, your sex, and your race, all right? Things that we can change are diet, the amount of physical activity that you get, the amount of stress, your sleeping patterns, the medications that you're on, your sleep-wake cycles, right? Where bariatric surgery helps is here, okay? We can't change what you eat, but we can help you to modify the amount that you eat. Okay? Sorry, I have to take this phone call. Hello? Yeah? It is? It's not. Mhm. Okay. Hold on one second. I don't think this is an accurate number. It's 713-798-7425. You'll probably get rerouted several times, but that's the place to start. Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. So this slide here just shows the imbalance between what we eat and how much we exercise, right? So we like to encourage patients to, get more exercise, right, and watch what they eat. But it takes a lot of exercise to burn enough calories to lose weight, right? So you've probably heard a pound of fat is equivalent to 3,500 calories, right? What is a calorie? A calorie is a unit of energy, right? So a pound of fat has about 3,500 calories. So that means that you have to burn off about 3,500 calories to burn a pound of fat, right? That is the same as walking about 5 miles a day, 7 days a week. And that's just for 1 pound, right? So it's very, very hard to lose weight with exercise. Not that you shouldn't do it, because exercise has a lot of benefits. It's good for your heart and your lungs. It helps to increase the strength of your muscles, okay? But you've got to do a lot of exercise over a long period of time to really see the benefits, okay? So on this slide, it shows a person doing 45 minutes of exercise who weighs 154 pounds. And it shows here the different types of exercise that this person might do. You'll notice that the amount of calories burned are all different, right? So walking burns the least calories, and that's because when you walk, you can do it at a very easy pace, right? And you don't really use a lot of muscle to walk, right? To run, though, you have to raise your body against gravity, so you've got to raise your body off the ground. And anytime you do something that actually raises your body off the ground, that takes a lot of energy, right? So running involves lifting your body off the ground, but it's also a high impact activity, okay? And you have to use a lot of muscle groups to run, right? So you burn a lot more calories when you run than when you walk. When you ride a bike, you've got to get that bike from a standing position to moving against the ground, right? So you've got to overcome the friction of the wheels, right? And the weight of the bike in order to get that bike moving, right? So that involves a lot of, use of a lot of the big muscles in the legs. And then you've also got to hold your body upright on that bike, right? So that's using a lot of muscle groups there, right? To stabilize yourself on the bike. So it uses a little bit more calories. And dancing is sort of in between, right? Depending on the type of dancing that you're doing, you're moving a lot of body parts. It's not really high impact necessarily, but you're doing it really, really fast and you're moving a lot of body parts, right? So it burns a lot of calories, right? So let's say you do all this exercise, right? You do your 45 minutes of running, you burn your 500 calories, and then you go to the drive-thru and you get a McDonald's hamburger, right? It's so easy to just blow through all that exercise that you did, right? And that's because, as I said, our food is processed, and processed food has a lot of calories. So what do I mean by processed food? The example that I tell people, well, I'll ask the group, what's an example of a processed food? Just tell me something in the grocery that you can think of that's processed.
McDonald's hamburger.
Already prepared, like frozen.
So you said something? What'd you say? What?
Lunch meat.
Lunch meat. That's a good example, all right?
Yeah.
So more specifically, and a McDonald's hamburger too, right? So exactly what I was thinking about is anything that has been taken from its natural form and manipulated in some way so that it no longer resembles the original food that it came from, right? So lunch meat, right? They take that, who knows what they mix it with. They grind it up, they mix it with a whole bunch of things. They create this paste, you know, and then they squeeze it out into this nice circular, sometimes irregular circle, so it sort of tricks you into thinking it's meat, okay? But that is highly processed food, right? McDonald's hamburger is also highly processed. There's nothing in that that looks like the wheat that it came from or the cow that it came from, right? So a good reference that I give people is to look at the food that's at the gas station, right? That's all processed food for the most part. It's processed so that it can last a long time at the gas station. That's why it has dust on it a lot of the time, that you've noticed, right? It's in a package, right? And if you look at the ingredients on it, it has they tend to be high in sugar, salt, or fat. And that's because that's what we like. That's what our brain likes, right? We like things that are crunchy, or very sweet, or very salty, right? So I like to recommend that patients try to avoid those foods and eat more natural foods, right? So if you take an Oreo that's this size and a tomato that's this size, that tomato is going to have fewer calories than that Oreo, because that Oreo has been taken from natural food and really, really ground up a lot to create that small little packet, right? That has all those calories. So try to stay away from the packaged foods and try to eat more natural type foods. All right. So this slide here is very busy, but basically it's looking at our activity levels, and it's starting in the 1960s and going out to the early 2000s. And the takeaway from this slide is that we drive our cars a heck of a lot, okay? And we don't do very much walking, right? And if you took this graph right here and you lined it up with the rates of obesity, they'd probably look very, very similar, right? Because starting in the 1960s, we started using what's called a high fructose corn syrup, right? And that is everywhere. That's in all sorts of foods. Even things that we don't think of as sweet have high fructose corn syrup, right? And high fructose corn syrup, while it's very cheap and it's very sweet, your body doesn't recognize it the way that it recognizes natural sugar, right? So it's not processed in the same way. You don't have the same response, right? So you don't necessarily get the full feeling, the full signal, the foods that have a lot of high fructose corn syrup. So this is showing that we're very sedentary, and we're also very spoiled, right? Because we've got iPads and cell phones and all sorts of things. And what I usually tell patients is, you know, I like to be really busy here at work, but when I get home I don't like to do a whole lot of anything, you know? And if you think about it, you can sit and order your movie, order your dinner, you get somebody to walk my dog, all without really moving, right? And if I feel really adventurous, I can, go to some drive-through and buy tons of calories and never move, never get out of my car, right? So we live very, very comfortable lives now, right? So it takes a lot of motivation. It really takes a lot of effort to be active today, right? And then our poor kids, right? I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed at the little toddlers that I see playing with cell phones. You know, they get acclimated to devices at such a young age, and you see them at the restaurants. The parents, they give them the tablet, right? And they're just playing there on the tablet. So they're learning to be sedentary as well. All right. So it takes a lot of effort to get exercise. So this is an interesting slide here. Obviously, this gym was built in a former mall. All right. So these folks are taking the escalator to go into the gym, right? So we will take any avenue to be lazy, right? And I'm speaking about myself in that category. If you give us the opportunity to do less work, we're going to do it, all right? So this slide here, this goes back to those comorbidities I was talking about, those medical problems that are associated with obesity, right? This is a very busy slide that shows a lot of different medical conditions. And we know that carrying extra body fat increases your risk for developing all of these, right? With that being said, you can have a normal body weight and still have these medical problems. So it's not the fat itself, right, that causes it. There are genetics that play a role in developing a lot of medical problems. But we know that carrying extra body fat increases your risk for these medical problems. So things like sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, gallbladder problems, GYN problems, joint pain, skin problems, and so on and so on and so on. And some of that is just from the mass effect. You know, the more weight that you're carrying right here in your abdomen, the harder it is for your lungs to expand properly, okay? And if your lungs can't expand properly, your breaths are very shallow, all right? And you build up a lot of carbon dioxide, so you feel sleepy during the day, right? Or you don't sleep well at night, okay? So some of it is just from the mass effect of carrying fat here, but we also know that fat is metabolically active, right? And so it can increase your risk for things like diabetes and high blood pressure and so on. Okay. So this is another slide that just shows that there are certain cancers, all right, that are responsive to some of the hormones that are made by fat, right? So I told you about, you know, the diabetes and high blood pressure. I told you that that fat is good for keeping your body warm, that it's good for making hormones. And some of those hormones, right, lead to cancers, right? So, you know, part of the reason why we want to address obesity is to decrease the risk of cancer. So, obesity doesn't just affect your physical well-being, it can affect your psychosocial well-being as well, right? And you can relate to some of these, I'm sure. So it's known that the bigger you get, you know, sometimes the clothing choices are limited and the prices are higher. It can be hard to get seating in public, you know. So some of my patients, I actually had one recently. She traveled out west somewhere. Her family lives out west. And she told me for the first time in years she was able to travel without needing like a seatbelt or something, you know. And she was so happy, you know. So it can be, you know, difficult to get accommodations in public. Sometimes toilet seats and shower stalls are not the right size. There can be hygiene issues related to having extra skin. Patients can feel like they just don't get as much respect from other people. I've had patients tell me, you know, that obesity is just very isolating. And I've had patients tell me, you know, I just don't look in the mirror anymore. Or I don't take pictures with my normal body weight friends, you know, or don't take pictures, period, you know. So patients could feel social discrimination. A lot of my patients have very healthy self-esteem, okay? But other people tell me that, you know, carrying extra body weight, especially if they haven't been overweight all their life, it can affect their self-esteem. They can, you know, experience depression and self-hatred as well. Patients can experience discrimination in the workplace, in terms of educational opportunities, and there can be higher rates of disability. Or none of this may affect them, all right? They may not have any of these, but I've had patients tell me all of these things, okay? So obesity doesn't just affect you on a physical level, but it has psychosocial effects as well. And it also affects how you interact with people as well, okay? of how people interact with you, alright? So, why do we care so much about obesity, alright? It's because it impacts so many areas of a patient's life. It can impact your family members. It can also, are you recording this by any chance? We prefer that you not, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So obesity